So I take this opportunity to express my gratitude to you all for your respect and offerings that were made today. It's a very moving experience to be the recipient of such generosity and devotion and goodwill. So it's time for rejoicing and having a pleasant day. The teachings are not really my teachings, they're reflections from practicing according to the Buddha's teachings. And it's, when I was a Samanera, before I met Luang Por Chai, started reflecting on the Four Noble Truths. I was a year retreat as a Samanera in a forest monastery in Nong Khai in Thailand. So it was, I decided I'd make the Four Noble Truths I try to prove whether it's true or not. Even though I had tremendous faith in it, I thought, is this just believing in the words that you get from somebody else, from reading a scripture, or because people said this is right and these are the words of the Buddha and you should believe them? Or I thought with the actual Four Noble Truths, it's pointing in a direction at oneself, not at the words in themselves. The words are directional signs. So that's why I like to teach from that position, from the Four Noble Truths, because it's quite a perfect teaching in its own right, but it's not to be just held in respect and chanted periodically, and it's like having a key to a prison cell and you just hang it on the wall and worship it. Whether it's the key to the prison cell is you have to put it into the door lock and move the key in the right way, you get out of the prison. So that's up to us to do that, to take these teachings and prove to ourselves that they work. What is the end of suffering? Is there an end of suffering, or is it just a hope that we all share, that every human being wants to find happiness? And then meeting Luang Por Chah a year later, he's always pointing to the end of suffering is here, and they point to his heart. The world ends here. And so this is very direct in the fact that Luang Por Chah wasn't pointing at himself as he's the end of suffering, but it's in the mind when we use awareness, mindfulness, to see the end of suffering, which is merely the end of a condition, a sankhara or a phenomenon. So over the years, I had insight quite early on. So, I did, at training with Luang Por Chah, learning to restrain my actions and speech with Vinaya, learning to be in, to learn how to live in a society in a very refined way. Because Vinaya is kind of a refinement about behavior. And so rather than just seeing it as another form of discipline that is imposed on me, which is one way I used to look at moral teachings in Christianity, was to see that it was a helpful tool to be aware of the impulsive nature that every human being has, the desires, sexual desires, the aversion, the anger, the confusion, restlessness and anxiety, endless anxiety and fear are, common to us all. They're all the First Noble Truth. So by reflecting, when I use this word reflecting, it's not like grasping. There's nothing to grasp. If we grasp the words, then we're not reflecting on suffering, we're just believing in something called dukkha, or translated as suffering. So it's not about grasping, but reflecting of being this Putto, this knowing witness of the way it is. So this is my 55th panta, and 56 if you count the Samanera year. So that's a long time, and I really am grateful for the opportunity to live like this, to live in such a fine way as I've been fortunate to encounter in this tradition. To spend one's life with all the support to investigate Dhamma. So like here at Amaravati, it's a perfect place for investigating the Four Noble Truths. You've got the support, generous support on material level. Ajahn Emro is an excellent teacher and leader, and the teachings of the Buddha are here for us to use. They're very practical and very direct. So it is, when I became a monk, I was about 31, 32 years old, and so I didn't know that much about Theravada Buddhism or Thailand in general, and I had tremendous, my interest in Buddhism arose through the Japanese Zen tradition, because in the 1950s there was a lot of interest, especially on the west coast of the United States, in the San Francisco Bay Area, especially a lot of interest in Zen teachings, as the Americans had been occupying Japan for 10 years after the war. And one of the really good things about that was the introduction of Zen Buddhism to the American consciousness. But before that, I didn't know anything about it. It was just a word I never heard. So Japan exported to the United States a very profound teaching, because Zen Buddhism is about investigating reality in its own particular style. So different ajahns, different teachers have different styles, different emphases in that and practice. And all I can do is offer what I've learned, the kind of wisdom that I've acquired through the practice, the way I've approached this particular, the Four Noble Truths teaching, which is the very essence, the heart of Buddha Dhamma. In 1955, I was in the U.S. Navy. We were in Japan, and that's where I encountered Zen Buddhism. Somebody gave me some books on haiku poetry, and they mentioned Zen, and so I became interested in pursuing that. Because it challenges us. And so reflective awareness is a challenge. It's not just any, something that, we're used to. We're conditioned for being told what's right and wrong, what to believe, what's not to believe. So our ego, our personal sense of self that we have acquired that. You aren't born with an ego. And cultural conditioning, Thilabhata Paramartha, very strong, it's still based on beliefs. What you're told is, according to your parents, your religion, your particular cultural patterns. And so we believe, we're caught up in the belief system that is imposed on us through modern education and modern science, even in modern psychology. It's pretty much a matter of believing what the experts tell us. But in Buddha Dhamma, it's not about believing. There's no kind of doctrinal positions that are imposed on us. So it's like asking for the 3 refuges. It's not me telling you have to take the refuges. It's in a kind of ceremonial style, admittedly, but the spirit of the 3 refuges is not kind of make you take refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, but requesting to use this particular words, this particular teachings. Not for belief, but for investigation. What is Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha in reality of here and now? And that takes reflection. We can respect Buddhism in its many forms, and it's an ancient religion. It is a religion. It has a very strong past, and a lot of it built on faith and belief. But this particular style that one developed living with Luang Por Chah in northeast Thailand was investigation, patipata. So after 56 years of investigating, I feel total trust in this teaching as a way to realize the end of suffering here in one's own mind, rather than, trying to fix everything in the world and in the planetary life. I mean, there's so much concern about human rights and individual rights and climate change, and trying to create, a sense of harmony as a universal reality. The world is like that. It can create these perceptions of perfection, like democracy is a beautiful perception of where everything is just and fair, equal and right, and everybody's on the same page, and there's no conflicts, but supporting each other for the welfare of planet Earth is a very kind of high-minded ideal, not to be disparaged. But then that's not where the end of the world is experienced, is realized. Where is the world right now for each one of us? Now, this is a reflective teaching. When I ask you, where is the world right now? And you say, well, it's what I see, what I hear, smell, taste, touch, that's the world. But in terms of Dhamma, the world is a sankhara. So the senses are impermanent. What we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, think, all our emotions, our cultural conditioning, our personal identities are all phenomena, conditions. They come and go and change according to other conditions. And this, you become the Puto witness. You're witnessing change, not trying to change everything for the best and try to create perfect monastery where everybody is living with perfect equality and happiness and supporting each other in their practice in the way that we imagine it would be, that we can imagine the very best monastery. But monasteries, Amaravati is a place for looking at suffering, reflecting on it, not trying to get rid of it, not trying to create perfect Sangha community out of trying to make everybody happy and enlightened and complete in themselves, even though that's an ideal. But all we can do is, for ourselves, to really realize the end of the world, the end of suffering is here. Here and now is not something in the future, where the future is not real at this moment. The future is just imagination, perceptions that we create in the mind. So tomorrow, at this very moment, as we're sitting here, is an imagination, is an image, is a concept. And this is reflecting on the way it is. I'm not saying that tomorrow is dismissing tomorrow as something, a delusion. But when we live our lives for tomorrow, for the future, then we're not reflecting on the way things are anymore. We're believing that we can become enlightened in the future if we practice hard, surrender to the form, watch our minds, all the advice that is very available in Amaravati, so the advice is all there, but the basic problem is Sakya Ditti Silabhata Paramasa Vicikicca. The first three fetters. So recently, giving one of these recorded talks, Ajahn Asoko labeled it, "I think, therefore I doubt." And that's a very, very good subject. Because we're all brought up with the Descartes, "I think, therefore I am," which is an interesting reflection. But where does doubt come from? Why do we doubt? Why do you doubt yourself? Why is it that you doubt that you're unenlightened and that that you've got to get something you don't have or get rid of all the things that are wrong with you? Is because you're thinking. The future is a promise, is a hope. Right now, at this moment, the hope. So everything goes well in the future. Everything might go wrong in the future. It's possible. Where there's hope, there's also fear. So the future is really uncertain as a perception. You can't find happiness or the end of the world or the end of suffering in the future. It's impossible. And the past, this moment, is just what you remember. This morning at the marquee, that's a memory now. This is a reflective awareness. It's not denying reality or saying it's not a critical reflection. Isn't about criticizing or judging. But it's reflecting right now. Who am I right now? Where am I right now? Where is Buddha right now? Dhamma right now? Where are they? These are questions, because the questioning style it makes you investigate, reflect, rather than tell you Buddha is here in the temple, it's on the shrine and behind me. or Buddha is a kind of mystical force in the universe. Buddha nature makes it sound kind of mystical and remote. And Dhamma, what is Dhamma right now? What is the Dhamma? The reality of Dhamma is it ultimate truth or ultimate reality? These are words again, put in ultimate form. Ultimate truth is a decent enough translation of Dhamma from Pali to English. But that's all it is. It's more words. It's not reality itself. It's not Dhamma, the here and now Dhamma that we are. We're thinking of it as in some terms of superlatives. So this is where this life is about investigating, and the second of the 7 factors of enlightenment. The first factor is sati, mindfulness, and the second is Dhammavicaya, investigation. So it's right there in front of us, in the very basic teachings that we inherit from this particular Pali tradition. So it's not a matter of my take on Buddha Dhamma or Luang Por Chah's special technique for enlightenment. These are perceptions that we might believe in or create or doubt. But doubt with self is the result of attachment to thinking. When you think about yourself as a person, you can't help but doubt. Just the personality is so, based on judgments, on, value judgments that we create with thoughts, whether we're right or wrong, good or bad, capable or incapable, or right or wrong. So as long as you try to define yourself as a person, then that tends to be, unless you're a tremendously self-confident egotist and a complete narcissist, you're going to doubt. Even complete narcissists need constant reinforcement that they're the best. So this is exemplified in modern-day politics very well. and so you need a constant reference, adulation and praise and reports of how brilliant you are. Well, that shows, still a lot of doubt, because nobody knows who they are as a personality, because the personality changes, according to other conditions. So when you're aware of your personality, it's not trying to get rid of it. You're not trying to have no personality and no thoughts, but you're aware of thoughts rather than grasping thoughts or grasping them or rejecting them. Because thought rises and ceases very quickly in conscious awareness. So it's important, to really use this opportunity that's made available here, because it is a very fine situation. The support, today, the incredible support just to celebrate my birthday, very moving experience. And kind of the generosity just on a material level and goodwill, is greatly appreciated. But if I depend on my happiness and satisfaction to have this kind of experience every day, then it would change, because I'm not going to get this kind of attention every day of my life till I drop dead at 120. So what you find isn't, in the end of suffering, is not, you don't need worldly praise. You don't need other people to define you or keep supporting your delusions. You don't need all the things that you believe you think you need as a separate person. The needs are clearly defined in the four requisites: shelter for the night, bangsakula cloth, robes, discarded cloth. So the needs, the four requisites, are a good reflection about, because we do need sort of survival, we need to eat food, we need medicine for illness, we need shelter, we need something to wear. So that's where these four requisites are found very helpful in dealing with my own greedy personality. My personality can be very greedy and needy kind of personality that I've observed. Learning to live in Thailand with, in the first years with Luang Por Chah, it was, I appreciated the fact that he would accept me as a monastic candidate, and so that I trusted. But there was so many things I didn't understand. It was very confusing the first year of monastic life at Wat Pah Pong. I spent mostly confused by everything. Didn't know what they were talking about. Just trying to following the right tradition and the right way they do things, what they consider is proper behavior, and try to adapt myself to that, and being frustrated, not quite knowing where I'm at in the society. But in Thailand, it was very nice because they do respect monastics, especially Western monastics, who they don't expect to. They'd never seen before a Western or an American ordained as a Buddhist monk. So that was very nice to have that kind of support and encouragement, because I felt very encouraged in the first year, even though I was on a level of learning to live within a Vinaya structure as it was taught at Wat Pah Pong at that time was very kind of confusing. And the confusion is about thinking. You think a lot, you're going to be confused. I think, therefore I doubt. So the doubting is where thinking stops. Rather than trying to get rid of doubt, trying to get answers to all your questions and find solutions to your problems, you're investigating doubt. Because, like in Zen Buddhism, it's, they use this doubting practice, asking these impossible, nonsensical koans, these things that you can't resolve just through clever intellectual answers to the koans. It's when you actually awaken to not knowing, when you are the Puto, the knower of not knowing, is like this, doubting is like this. And your thinking mind will stop for a while, because the thinking process usually depends on grammatical forms, habit patterns. So we don't notice the spaces in between thoughts or how words arise and cease. We're always trying to define, figure out what I should do, what's next, without realizing what we're doing. So, we have good intentions and we make good wishes and so forth. These things are, we intend to do the best we can, but who are we? What are we anyway right now? And, thinking mind stops. There's silence. So listening, when I talk about sound of silence, it's when you stop thinking. Try to think about not thinking doesn't work. Because even thinking about non-thinking is thinking. So you notice when you're not thinking, it's like this, and the question, the doubt, stops the rabid habit patterns of just trying to get answers to questions, solutions of problems. And learning to really trust that not knowing. Not being sure, feeling uncertain, insecure, and the desire to find certitude or security in conditions or in ideas. We're always desperately trying to support our belief systems or try to get rid of our fears and doubts. And that's the first noble truth of suffering, is because we think. And we believe our thoughts, and we never question them. We judge them, because you can have good thoughts and bad thoughts. You can have very kind of generous, metta-like, loving-kindness emotions, where you love everybody equally, and then you can also, when the conditions arise, feel angry and frustrated and hate everybody. So emotions are dependent upon conditions. And that's a very strong identity, our emotional habits. What I feel, my view, my opinion, the sense of me is so ingrained in our thinking pattern, our habit pattern of this identity about me as somebody, who needs something, needs respect, needs encouragement, needs help. Or maybe you're the opposite. I know it all. I know what everybody else needs, and I'm right, and they're all wrong if they don't agree with me. But who thinks like this? Who believes like this? This is a question there's no answer to. There's no answer to who. But it does stop the thinking. The habitual thinking patterns that you've developed in your life. And this reflection on where is the Buddha right now? Where? What is Buddha right now? If Buddha is more than, is it just a word from Pali, Sanskrit, Indian tradition? Because then it's taken into the English context. We take refuge in Buddha. But the reflective on Buddha isn't about grasping all the ideas about Buddha that you might acquire, but taking refuge in the here and now. Buddha is a word for awake and conscious awareness here and now. So pointing to this understanding dukkha takes reflective awareness, not belief that everything is unsatisfactory and suffering. And in that first year as a samanera, I really had insights into the first and second noble truth. Just by reflecting in the situation I was in. I didn't have a teacher, I just had this book, Word of the Buddha, the basic teachings. But I didn't, I could understand impermanence, anicca, and dukkha, unsatisfactoriness or suffering. Anatta was like still something, like no self. No self. What does that mean? Because who suffers? Who can see impermanence? What is it that knows impermanence? Can observe any impermanence? What is it that is aware of impermanence and suffering? And the answer always would come out, me. Because that's the only subject I had I could create, was a sense of I'm the one that's doing this. I'm the one that is investigating. I'm the one that is observing, witnessing change and anicca and impermanence. I'm the one that is meditating on suffering and realizing it. Unsatisfactoriness is the nature of sankhara. That was getting beyond just belief in Buddha's teachings. It's investigating them. But what is the real subject? The immanent reality of each one of us is awareness. Here and now, so it's not a mystery. And you get beyond the words and all the conditioned attachments and habit patterns that we identify ourselves with and identify the world and create reality around with the cultural conditioning. What's left when you've let go of the world? What's left when you've let go of desire? When you've let go of the causes of suffering? There's still awareness, conscious awareness, all the time. And you notice this. It's obvious. It's not subtle even. So in going to live with Luang Por Chah and that's why I like particularly the Buddha practice, because suddenly the word Buddha means something helpful rather than just a belief that, if you're brought up as a Buddhist, you don't doubt it. But foreigners, we're brought up in different religions or no religion, and Buddha just another exotic word we fit into the English context, but it's not just an empty word from some exotic place, from some ancient time. Buddho is awareness here and now. So it is a refuge. A safe place to take refuge in is awareness here and now. It's like this. Different teachers different techniques, traditions, and so forth. The techniques, can be useful, or they can get in the way when we just attach to some kind of technique of meditation. Because we're not, we trusted somebody else's technique rather than direct insight into the here and now. So you hear, a lot of people have been meditating for years using some technique. And the technique's not wrong or anything, but they still see that if they keep doing a technique over and over again, they'll become enlightened. So the whole question of who am I never arises. They have utter faith in the teaching, the teacher, the technique. But is that what the Buddha wasn't teaching a technique? The Buddha Dhamma, the Four Noble Truths, isn't a technique. It's an invitation to reflect on something very common that none of us want, the suffering of attachment to the birth and death conditions that we are totally identified with. So like on birthday today, you think of birth is the very cause of death. So what was born today, 87 years ago, was a physical form, infant form, conscious form, that's now, the form has survived 87 years. So it's about the form, the birthday, the body is 87 years old. That's the form, the empty form. It's not a real person. It's not, we operate on a conventional level for birthdays, but it's important to reflect on birthdays, that they are merely cultural traditions. And the bodies are like this, 87 years old, you look like this. So this is the way it is for a physical form. And if I identify with the form as what I am, then what is, the future is about getting older, which isn't a very happy thought, old age. As I told many people, no one understands it till you get old. So I don't expect the young monks young nuns to understand old age. Because it's only when you grow older you understand what it's like. It's like this. And this we can offer, like we're old forms that have practiced in this tradition. So the teaching is not about the form, but the nature of form is anatta, non-self. Then what is the ultimate self? When we talk about who is it, what is aware of old age is like this. It's conscious awareness, isn't it? So that's, what we are really, that's our true nature, is this deathless reality, conscious awareness in the here and now, is what we begin to recognize, not personalize, but that this is what knows that we don't know. That is at peace with itself. Consciousness isn't judgmental, isn't male or female, isn't a monk or a layperson, isn't a Buddhist or a Christian. Consciousness is here and now, and anatta, non-self. You can't find it, you can't define it, but it's no mystery. It's like trying to find yourself as a person. It changes, doesn't it? Sometimes you think, I'm okay, other times you think you're really hopeless, or in a community, notice living in a community of monastics, we're very conscious of each other, what others think of us, very self-conscious about our position, our status within the structure, the traditional structure. All these is that what oneself is a monk or a nun? Is that what you really are, or a lay person, or a good person, or a bad person? These can change according to other conditions. Conditions arise, and like the weather, it changes according to time and place. There's no permanent, perfect weather. But what is trustworthy is awareness, mindfulness, sati, dhammavicaya, virya, piti, pasati, samadhi, upekkha. So the nature of consciousness is upekkha, ultimately. It's equanimity, it's balance, it's perfect, it's non-personal. Nobody owns it. You can't find it because that's what you are, like trying to find yourself. Trying to see your own eyes, you can't do it. You can't find yourself, really, because there is no self. So I offer this as a reflection.